For years, this tank carried a reputation few machines in history ever achieved. It wasn't just considered advanced, it wasn't just considered reliable. Many experts, analysts, and military observers openly called it one of the best tanks in the world. Built by a country known for precision engineering, discipline, and decades of armored warfare experience, this vehicle symbolized everything modern ground combat was supposed to be: protection, firepower, and dominance. On paper, it had no obvious weakness. Thick composite armor, advanced optics, highly trained crews, a design refined through generations, not experiments. So when this tank was finally deployed into one of the most intense modern conflicts on Earth, expectations were clear. It was supposed to change the balance. It was supposed to give its operators a decisive edge. It was supposed to survive where others failed. But war doesn't care about reputation, and the battlefield it entered was not the one it had been designed for. Instead of clean maneuvers and predictable threats, it faced a chaotic environment filled with drones, precision strikes, and constant surveillance. Every movement was watched, every position exposed. What followed shocked many of those who had believed in its near-mythical status. Because rather than dominating the battlefield, this tank began to struggle. Not in isolated incidents, not because of poor crews, but because the nature of modern warfare itself had changed. And this machine, once seen as nearly untouchable, suddenly found itself fighting a war it was never meant to face. To understand why this tank struggled, you first need to understand the battlefield it was sent into. Modern warfare no longer looks like the conflicts this machine was designed to dominate. In past wars, armored units moved through relatively predictable environments. Threats were dangerous, but limited. Ambushes required proximity. Anti-tank teams needed time, concealment, and precise positioning. That world no longer exists. The battlefield this tank entered was saturated with sensors, drones, and real-time intelligence. The sky was never empty. Small, inexpensive drones hovered constantly, watching every movement from above. Positions that once felt safe were now exposed within minutes. There was no such thing as a hidden advance. Every armored column was tracked, every stop was observed, every route was analyzed. Instead of facing enemy tanks head-on, this vehicle faced a web of threats that did not care about armor thickness or reputation. Precision-guided weapons could strike from unexpected angles. Drone operators could adjust attacks in real time. Artillery was no longer blind. The tank was no longer the hunter. In many situations, it became the most visible target on the battlefield. And this created a dangerous imbalance. The very strengths that once made heavy armor dominant, size, protection, firepower, now made it easier to detect, track, and engage. Mobility was restricted by terrain. Supply lines were under constant threat. Even brief pauses increased risk. This wasn't a failure of engineering. It was a collision between a legendary machine and a battlefield that had quietly evolved beyond it. The first signs that something was wrong did not come from official reports. They came from the battlefield itself. Footage began to circulate. Images of damaged vehicles, abandoned positions, tanks operating far more cautiously than expected. What was once assumed to be unstoppable was suddenly being used with hesitation. This tank was not failing because it lacked power or protection. It was struggling because the rules it was built around no longer applied. Instead of decisive breakthroughs, crews found themselves constantly reacting. Advancing meant exposing their position. Stopping meant becoming vulnerable. Every movement had consequences, and none of them were invisible. Drones played a critical role in this shift. They didn't need to destroy the tank to neutralize it. They only needed to find it. Once located, the battlefield responded instantly. Artillery could be redirected. Precision weapons could be guided. Supply routes could be targeted. Even the threat of detection was enough to slow operations. What made this situation especially damaging was perception. A tank designed to project dominance was now associated with caution. A platform meant to lead advances was forced into defensive roles. Not because it was ineffective, but because survival demanded restraint. This wasn't the dramatic collapse many expected. It was something quieter, and far more dangerous. A gradual erosion of confidence. And in warfare, confidence shapes decisions. When commanders hesitate, opportunities disappear. When momentum is lost, even the most capable machines begin to feel out of place. The tank had not been defeated in a single moment. It was being worn down by a battlefield that no longer rewarded strength alone. What happened to this tank was never just about one machine. It was about a shift that many had underestimated. For decades, armored warfare was built around a simple belief. If you had the best tank, you controlled the battlefield. That belief no longer holds. The struggle of one of the world's most respected tanks in Ukraine revealed something uncomfortable. Modern warfare is no longer dominated by single platforms, no matter how advanced they are. It is shaped by systems, information, and visibility. Heavy armor still matters. Firepower still matters. Training still matters. But they are no longer enough on their own. The battlefield has become transparent. Movements are observed. Positions are shared. Decisions are made faster than ever before. In this environment, even the most capable machines must operate carefully, deliberately, and often defensively. This does not mean tanks are obsolete. It means their role has changed. They are no longer unstoppable spearheads pushing through enemy lines. They are components within a larger network dependent on drones, electronic warfare, air defenses, and constant intelligence. The struggle of this tank is not a failure story, it is a warning. A warning that reputation cannot outpace reality, that past dominance does not guarantee future success, and that wars are no longer won by strength alone, but by adaptation. The lesson from Ukraine is clear. The battlefield evolved quietly, and those who failed to adapt quickly enough paid the price, even if they arrived with the best machines in the world. And as modern armies look toward the future, one question now matters more than any other. Not which tank is the strongest, but which force understands the battlefield first.